Uh, Hello, I'm Vinmay Nair. I'm a PHP developer.
Hello, I am Anirudh. I will work in a startup which offers SaaS.
Hi, my name is Paresh Peshwe and I am an MCA student, Modern College Engineering.
Hello everyone, I am Atul Bhosle. I am studying MCA at Modern College of Engineering.
Hello, I am Kamlesh Shah. I am a freelance consultant and currently having some engagements and interesting use cases for healthcare domain as well. And I would like to invite mobile developers to discuss further the opportunities. Yeah, thanks.
Hi, I'm Swapnil Kotwal. I'm currently working with Vertis Microsystem LLP. I'm open source contributor for Android from last 1 year, and basically I did BSc Mathematics and post graduation in also in applied mathematics. So my open source projects are basically demonstrating the mathematical concept in using the Android platform. So if you want to follow me, please follow me github.com/swapnilvkotwal. And currently I am developing the SSH app. You all know the SSH, and it is encoding your. We all familiar with our government is launching central monitoring system, and also monitoring our lives. So using that app, we can encrypt our messages and send that encrypted messages using SMS or email also. Sorry, for Gmail it is. And I'm trying to encrypt decrypt data in future for voice also. And I developed one application for our some external client for Android SDK testing for helping our release team, and that is the internal tool.
So what do you do for a living? I mean, other than contributing to open source?
Yeah. Basically, I work for some external client at Vertis, and we develop some applications for them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hi, I am Nilesh, working as an Android developer in Vertis Microsystem.
Hello, myself Sunil Kotwal. As an Android developer, I'm working with Vertis Microsystem LLC.
Hi, I'm Kiran, currently working for a startup called Apps Quencher. And recently they released a game called Fat Cricket Batsman on iPad and iPhone. If you get a chance, please download it and give a rating. It's especially for hardcore cricket fans. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Monali. I'm working as an iPhone Android developer since last 2 years, working with AppStudio. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jitesh. I'm a Java developer.
So we had some people who came in recently. So can you introduce
Hi, I'm Rahul, and currently I'm waiting for my results of graduation.
Hi, I am Alankar. I am a computer engineering student and technology enthusiast.
Hi, this is Prasamesh Deshpande. I completed my engineering computer and now I'm looking forward for PG.
Hello, myself Vardhaman Patil. I'm working for Ardril Private Limited as a data forensic engineer.
Cool. Okay, so today's session we are going to talk about how to make your backend development for your mobile apps a little quicker. Okay, so there is something called backend as a service. So we are just going to talk about it. So the agenda about me. Okay. So my name is Mukund. I'm in the IT industry for a while now. Okay, I work for Cinezip as an engineering manager, and I like technology. So I run TechNext. I've been running it for the past 6-7 months. One of the good things about this meetup is that people come and people share their ideas, so you can actually learn a lot of new things which you normally don't find time for. That's what I do. What are we going to talk about? I'm going to cover an introduction to backend as a service. What are the features available? Generally, what kind of incentives these days people are looking at for application development, and the risks with using backend as a service. And I just want to see how simple it is by running through a very, very simple incomplete app. We'll do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another presentation which I did along with the CTO of Synergip called Mr. Vinayak. Let me run that because that actually takes us, so there's no point in duplicating all the slides, so let me just do that. Oh, come on. Okay, so this is from a presentation which myself and the CTO of Synergip, Mr. Vinayak, did a while ago. So let me just skip the introductions. So the whole big is the volume okay? Yeah, okay. So the paradigm shift is something which we want to understand, right? So we went from little bit of computer history, right? So we went from mainframe terminals, then we went to client server, then we went to web applications, and today we have what we call everybody wants to use any kind of device for work. Okay, it can be your mobile device, it can be your tablet, it can be your PC or computer or laptop, and a lot of these things are coming to organizations. And when these things come in, one of the things which we need to know is that now the data which we used to have before in the ecosystem was mostly either in your own cloud or it was in your organization's cloud. Now that ecosystem also includes a lot of other things like social and whatnot. So if you just focus on the current technology, okay, we have data which is, okay, this is what I'm talking about, mobile device as a customer. In the future, what we are talking about is that we need multiple faceted services. When you develop applications in the future, you are going to look at multiple things. One, people are going to bring their own device. The desktop usage may be still last in enterprise, but even in enterprise, everybody started using tablets. And everyone, when they use their devices, they want things like push notification. They want the ability to have cloud storage so that the data is there in every device that they use, right? And everyone wants to have social media integration. And everyone also wants to have location sensitivity so that depending on where they are, they want the data to be available to them. Okay? For example, sales executive. Hey, volume. For example, a sales executive might want the data which is relevant to his particular location instead of having to filter it every time he goes to a new place. And while doing all of this, we want to make sure that we have proper user management and proper compliance. Okay? And also one of the things which people want to do is have big data search in everybody's application. So the ecosystem is evolving. This is going to be the trend which we personally foresee in the near future. Okay? So what is backend as a service? Backend as a service, basically if you look at the definition, we are saying that we are providing web and mobile app developers with a way to link their application to cloud storage and providing features like push management, notification, integration with social networking service and everything. So it's like a service which they provide for you to develop your backend on. So if you want to look at the definition, first we had software as a service. Initially when we said that we are having REST-based APIs for everything in the planet, and then we have REST service catalogs out there. And we also talked about companies which are just doing software as a service, right? Then we had infrastructure as a service, which is Amazon, AWS, Microsoft Azure, where they basically give you virtual machines and all the good stuff to store data and deploy servers. Platform as a service, basically infrastructure as a service plus the deployment of server-side requirements, right? For example, we had a session on OpenShift a while ago. So OpenShift is from Red Hat. What you can do is, the other example is Heroku. Okay, so Heroku or OpenShift, you can directly request for a MySQL instance or a Rails instance or a, whatever and whatnot, and depending on the capacity you need, these people charge you for it. And finally, we have backend as a service. So you can look at it as an integration of everything. So it is a platform as a service plus user management plus social media integration plus push plus location and all that. So there are lots of players. One example of a backend provider would be a company called Kinvi. Okay. So how does backend as a service help us? Okay, if the service is there, what does the service do, right? So I'll show you how, we'll walk through one particular example, but what is the basic idea? The idea for the service is that you should be, when you're developing a new, let's talk in the context of mobile, right? So when you're developing a new application, the first thing you want to do is you want to put your minimum viable product, okay? Basic, bare minimum functionality, you want to put it in the app store as soon as possible. Then you want to iterate on functionality as things happen. So if you remember, for example, Dropbox, their first minimum viable product was only a website with static data and a contact form. Before they even launched the product, they launched website. They told everybody what they are going to do, and that is how they launched. Okay, so how to get your minimum viable product out there, that is something which the service application can help you. It also helps you because you can actually go and rethink and rework your business ideas without incurring the cost on the back end. That's one of the things where it helps us. The other area where backend service helps us a lot is in scalability. Okay, scalability is two things. One is your software should be scalable, your hardware should be scalable. Okay, so let me talk about an example. So Plaxo in 2000s, right? They went from what? 100 users in November 2002, they went up to 5 million users in 2005. So in 3 years, these guys got about what? In 3 years, they got about 5 million users. Okay. So 5 million users is a lot of users, and this is in 3 years. So you think about the complexity of evolving your platform while supporting that kind of a load, right? So if you're, so that is one thing. This is in 2000s. So now we are in 2013, right? 2013, has anybody seen that icon anywhere? No, but I guess a lot of people would have used something called WhatsApp. So this is another service called MessageMe. Okay, very similar to WhatsApp. They launched this year. So these guys hit 5 million users in 75 days. Okay, they are still growing, obviously. And I tried it out, the app works wonderfully. It's there for the iPhone and Android and all that. So now the question comes to you as a developer is, you have this great business idea, right? You want to get that business idea out and then get it validated. Are you going to plan for 5 million users in 10 days? So what is the, where is the entry level, where is the entry for you in the market? And where is the thing for you? So for things like this, BaaS actually helps, okay? We'll see how. The other part of this entire infrastructure joke is, infrastructure scenario. Okay, so if you build infrastructure for 5 million users, does that mean that all 5 million users are going to be using your service all the time? Okay, so even if you have EC2 instances, you are using Amazon's load balancer, they are beautiful, Elastic Load. The fact is, if you deploy X number of machines, you are paying for X number of machines, right? And what happens when your user load goes down? So this is an example which I like a lot. Amazon uses it a lot, by the way. This is a company, this is a data from the company Pinterest. So that's an app called Pinterest, right? Where you can put images you like, and you can basically share images like a pinboard to everybody. It's a nice little app, nice little website, you should try it out. Their usage in terms of US, okay, the brown area is their actual load, okay, and the white is whenever you provision hardware, you want to make sure that there is some capacity. So the blue area is where they were provisioning on top. So you can look at the wastage of server capacity. It's not that the server capacity is also your money. Okay, so these kind of things BAS does help. There are different models in which you can pay. Okay, but there are ups and downs to it. So one of the models where they can say is that you only pay how many API calls you make. Okay, I'm not sure if the BAS providers are making money out of it, but that is one model which they have. So that could help you because you don't have to worry about building gazillion server in the backend for millions of users or tens of thousands of users. So Pinterest uses auto scaling in a nice way. They have predictive user load. So okay, so if you want to get into the technicalities of how Amazon helps you, Amazon helps you to set thresholds. So you can set a threshold saying that if my CPU usage is above 80%, I can trigger an event to launch another instance. So by the time my CPU gets, say to example 100%, it will never hit 100% because I already have another server. And if you say that if my CPU load is coming below 15%, kill the instance. Okay, so the Amazon does solve that problem for you by giving auto scaling, which is fine and dandy, but it's still, you need to make the judgment call. Right? You don't know if, for example, every day morning when people go to work at 9 o'clock, you are going to have maybe 1 million users log in immediately. So even if you provision servers, by the time the servers take about 5-6 minutes to come up in EC2. So it's going to take some effort on your part to predict your business model. The other good thing which BAS helps for every mobile developer is analytics. So if you are doing any kind of consumer-based application, unless you know what your consumer is doing with your application, you really are shooting in the dark. Okay, in today's world, you need to know what the guy is doing. You need to know what features are being used. You need to know how the app is being used. So all of the BAS providers give you analytics directly on the backend, meaning which API call is being used, how much, which data is being used and all that. Some of them also give Android and iOS SDKs where you can have client-side analytics. So you can see which activity is being used more or which screen the user is using more. All of that can directly be taken from the providers. And what are the other advantages? So most of the BAS providers give you push notification. So you want to develop your application, you don't have to worry about Apple's messaging system or Android's messaging system or BlackBerry for that matter. Okay, you can directly use the service provider's API. They take care of it. You don't have to worry about the client. You can do things like channel push, where you can broadcast messages and your clients can subscribe to messages. You can do things like, targeted push, where you can push only to a particular device. So there's a lot of advanced push notification which you can do with BAS. There's integration with third-party service. So if you are using SAP, you are using any of these backend providers in your business, right? Most of the BAS providers give you a hook to get data from there. So it is not like this is something which is isolated. How do I integrate it with my enterprise? You can still do that. Forget the enterprise. From a user's perspective, we can also integrate with other solutions. SDKs are very easy to use. Why is that an advantage? Two things. One is the design of the SDK forces you to do good programming. Okay, in my opinion. Okay, it prevents you from doing things which normally don't scale. Most of them generally give you a REST-based server and a client which talk to the server in JSON. That's basically the foundation for most of them. Okay, and the backend development, we can see some examples, is basically you create a user ID console, go to the console, you do capacitive. We have one of the founders here. So if we are not done, if I get done early, I'll ask him to give a demo of his product. So they basically give you a web-based GUI where you can design your data, you can design your relationships and everything. Okay? If you know what you're doing, if you know what you want, back-end development takes 5-10 minutes. Okay? And I'm not kidding you. Okay? So the guys who need to be worried are the back-end developers. API versioning, so if you are rolling out version 2 of your product, version 1 needs to be supported. It is not easy to do. Okay, it is definitely not easy to do. BaaS providers give you that. They know how you can choose, you can specify the API version, you can have both versions supported at the same time, so that once you are sure that everybody is on the new version, you can switch off the old version. Okay. Then you do sandboxing, so you can have deployment and staging area. You can have limited testing, A/B testing or whatever, and then you can switch it to the live. Okay, so these are all the good advantages. Okay, we'll see some examples later. So the other part of BaaS is, so this is great, right? This is the solution to world hunger and everything is available. So what do we do? So two things. The area is new. So there are more than, I don't know, my count was somewhere around 30. I'm not sure what the approximate that is. Yeah, so approximately we have about 30 providers. Okay, and because this is a meetup, I can be a little politically incorrect, sorry. You would find that almost all of them are VC funded. Okay, everybody is VC funded, everybody is started up, and then everybody is competing in the space. Now, and the companies are not that old. But you have to understand that only in 2007 iPhone came out, right? At that point of time. So time in today's world is very crunched. And in fact, if you look at the guy Pars, they came out in 2011 and they got acquired by Facebook for some ridiculous money this year in April, I believe. Okay, the company came out in 2011, they got acquired by Facebook. But the problem is you still don't have large organizations in this area yet. But it's changing. I mean, for example, there are company like Key, for example, founded only in 2010. So that is a collaboration between it's a new company which was formed by two providers. So they are a profit-making company. They are very huge. And then we have our own Apacitive from Pune. We have one of the founders here. So if you can just get up. So he's the man. So we have formed a BaaS provider out of Pune, and if for your credit, I mean the backend development ease and the data modeling in Apacitive is better than many of the other ones, which I have seen. Okay, maybe if you have time, you could show us. So we have all these people who are coming out, right? And then another example was in Singapore. I think there was one. Wow, forgot the name. Sorry, company which came up in 2011 shut down in 2013. Okay, so it happens. So when you as a developer are trying to see what you want to do with your application, some amount of judgment is required. So what can you do? Make sure that you have lock-in mitigation. Make sure you're not using anything proprietary. Okay, so that tomorrow if this provider goes, you can port your code over. It's easy, it's not that hard, because all of them generally give you very defined proper interfaces. So it's basically like you have a server which is giving REST APIs and then a client is talking to a server, which is good. So you can even put your own backend tomorrow. Or you can move from one provider to another provider, and some of them have wizards for migrating from one provider to another to them. Make sure that your data is yours. Make sure you can access your data. StackMob, for example, I think you need to call your customer support to take a dump of your data. Then there are others where you can just go to the web menu and export your data. I mean, it's your data for heaven's sake. So just make sure that you have your data. Scalability and performance SLAs. Lot of claims made by every company. Everyone says they can support so many number of clients. There is no real certifying authority, if I can say that, who says that yes, they can. Okay. And what kind of performance? What is the response time for which I'm going to get for a API call to the server? Those things we need to be careful about. So there was one company, again there's another backend as a service company based out of India. For gaming backend, they call themselves Pars, no, not Pars. So, no, what's the other one? Blazor one, I suppose it's one of those. So what they did to prove that they could scale is that they actually took part in Amazon's AWS startup competition, Blazor, right? So they did that just to justify that their architecture is scalable, and they actually made it all the way to the finals. So they say that, you know, we are the finalist in 2012 for AWS. So our architecture is that good, we know what we are doing. Okay, but the problem is, bigger problem is nobody is there to certify somebody. Okay. Stability of the vendor, basically I'm talking about whether the company will be there tomorrow. Of course I'm being paranoid, but then this is just from an enterprise perspective. If you are a happy little company running, you don't want to risk your future. So, and then what kind of enterprise features? So some of the providers, they allow you to put the server in the data center. You can, they give you an appliance, so you can take a hardware box, put the BAS application, put it in your center, okay? And these are all fine. Future trends, we will see consolidation at some point of time, okay? Because the market, the domain is expanding, it will have to contract a little. When it consolidates, it will be easy for people to do things. Even AWS, for example, has an SDK which is very crude. You don't know, maybe in the future they might decide to get into the business, but not likely. They don't do that. They already have enough trouble with their PaaS. What is that? Beanstalk? Elastic Beanstalk, whatever, they're having enough trouble with it already. So maybe they will after some time. Okay. Okay. So, and interoperability improvement is, what do you do if your mobile device is not supported? Okay, so that is something which you need to be careful about. So this is basically the introduction of what BAS is. What we can do now, before I proceed, let me pause for a second. Does anybody have any questions? Any general question on the whole thing? No. Okay. So let me, what time is it? Okay. Let me do a, great. I'm just picking up Kinvi. You can pick anyone. Everybody has a free sign up, by the way. Okay, so here, this is the console for Kinvi, which is a BAS provider. You go to kinvi.com, you can register yourself. And once you register yourself, you basically go to they take you to a dev center. This is same for everybody, okay? Where you can basically say that one way or the other, right? So for example, this is Kinvi. What kind of a tutorials, guides or samples, or if you want to build a new app, what kind of app do you want to build? Okay, so for example, this company supports these platforms. So let's say that you want to build an Android app, right? So you click on Android. And then once you create your app, you just give a name for your app. Most of them basically just give you an app ID and an app secret. These are the keys which you are going to use in your SDK for talking to the server. Okay, so you use their app key and the, you use the key and the secret, and basically you get the SDK, which you can then download to your machine and then use it. One thing which is common to many of them is the documentation and the guides. Everybody is changing their API so often. Okay. The API reference sometimes is out of date. So the best solution which I found the hard way is that you go to the demo apps they normally have on GitHub somewhere, download the demo app, look at the sample code, then figure out the right API to use. So Kinvi's API reference, for example, was talking about one query command for data model called get, which has been depreciated. So I was trying to figure out, and then I found there's another variation which is there. Documentation is sparse. This is pretty much all you get. Okay. So tutorials, maybe they teach you how to, okay. They talk about an open graph, which again assumes that you know Facebook open graph and then how you want to do it. And then they tell you all the screenshots of what you want to do. Okay. So this is how pretty much most of the providers are. Okay. So what we can do is we can take on sample app. My recommendation is take a sample app, test it out, and then play with it so that you can see how it works. So let's say, for example, so for this example, what I thought is, let's look at the Notepad tutorial, right? Everyone who's an Android developer would have looked at it at some point in their career, hopefully. How many of you know Android? Okay, good enough. We can also do iOS, but yeah, just as an example. So what I did was, I got the source for the Android exercise, okay, for the Notepad exercise, and this is the Notepad app which you get from there. So if I run this, sake. Yeah, I tried doing this in the last minute, so I think both activities have the same freaking intent. Anyway, so let me close this project. And on the emulator, how do you uninstall this stuff in the newer versions? Uninstall. Okay. This is the default app, so I mean there's nothing fancy to it. So this is an old app. It still assumes there is a menu. You go and click and add a note, and you say this is a title, and then you say this is a body, right? And then you save it. And if you click on it, then it shows you that you have added something. Great app. Okay. So my suggestion, take something like this and let's see if we can make you can store the data remotely. Okay. Instead of saving it on the local SQLite database, how would you go about saving it remotely? So to keep everybody's focus, I'm not going to do it step by step. Let me just show you how I went about doing it. So first in Kinvi, I created this application. Let me go ahead and create a new one. Let's call this TechNext demo, Android. Okay. Then I go here and I want to look at the data store. There are no collections. So what is a collection? So anybody who's familiar with the JSON, so collection is like anybody familiar with NoSQL or MongoDB? So collection is the same thing. So basically in the JSON data store, collection would be like your table. Okay, so let's say a collection is your table. So let's call, we need to put our note somewhere. Let's call this, I don't know, notes. Create the collection. Okay. So Apacito's UI can be demoed later, so that is much better. So here you can say, that's all you need to do at this point of time. Because the data is being stored in a JSON format, there is no real concept of a row and a column. I mean a column. Okay, but just to keep ourselves happy, let us add some columns. We'll add one which is, yeah. Add another column called body. And the GUI is buggy. Unless you insert a first row, it doesn't show anything. Add a row. And, oh, come on. I don't want this. So this just allows you to do data entry here, right? This is just an example. So with this, and let's add another one. Okay, now we are done. What we are going to do is we are just going to go back to the app. And this is the app secret and this is the app key. Okay, so these guys give you an SDK and they are giving you some examples. So what we can do is we can put in our properties file, we can basically put that secret and the key here. This is the font too small? Is there an easy way to zoom the font size here? Control? Command what?
Control and scroll.
Oh, screen zoom?
No,
okay.
I think they went to
Okay. Didn't work. Where do we go? Appearance, colors and fonts. Wow. Okay, basic. Come on, somebody has to tell me what this beautiful thing is. Wow. Okay. Yeah, better. Okay, so this is the app secret. and this is the app key. Okay? And what I do in this example, which I'm assuming a lot of people have some idea about, at least the Android devs should have some idea about. Basically, you had a DB adapter, then you had a main activity. Excuse me. Okay, you basically had a main activity, and which was using the DB adapter to write and read data. It was doing a query from the server on, from the database on what the data was, and then it was calling a method called fill data to set a list adapter for the list view. Okay. So instead of doing that, all that I'm doing is I have my globals, which is just a dirty way to share things across the activities, where I have from the Kinvi SDK, I have a client, okay, which I am initializing in my onCreate, and once it's initialized, everything is a callback. So you basically say, Kinvi builder, client builder, get this. So when you do this, okay, it reads that file in the assets folder, it initializes, and then when I do a login with a callback, it logins to the server. All of these are async. Okay, nothing is in the main thread. So that's why you register callbacks all over the place. And similarly in the fill data, all that I'm doing is I'm writing a query. So I'm saying that I believe this is the collection name. So this is the collection name. Get the data into the nodes entity class. So what's the nodes entity class? We'll go through this quick. Nodes entity class is a Google JSON class. So basically where you can do markup to say that, this is the key and this is the accessor for the key. So where we set body as the column name in the server, that is now represented by this variable. Okay? Very simple, very straightforward. You just need to make sure you have a default constructor. There's nothing in here, just a normal Java object. And in the Notepad application, what I'm saying is initialize the data guy and then do a query where you say that, where I'm on success, all that I'm doing is I'm setting an adapter for the view and then I'm setting the data there. Okay? These are straightforward things, which is what you do for a list view. So a list view basically needs an adapter. If you're doing a database, then there is a cursor which you need to pass over there. Otherwise, there is a structured adapter which you can use, where because I'm using an array list, or an array, I can just directly use this guy. Array adapter of nodes entity. Straightforward Android UI stuff, okay? Do all this, and what happens if you run it? You can see that the Kinvi's guy is logged in, and it is logged in successfully as the application. Okay, and no error. Let's see what happened in the emulator. We don't get to see anything. Loaded to data. Okay. So that's the beauty of doing things live. Okay, so what we do is we switch back to the other collection. If it's not able to load the data, then more than likely my entity is not matching the map to the JSON object in the server. So let's just make sure that we have the same data schema. Okay, these are small letters, title and body. I'm assuming that's what it is. There you go. Done? So instead of reading from your SD card, you actually did a REST API call, you did all the good things in life, you did nothing on the main application thread, everything is done. Okay? And you can, depending on how bad you want to write your code, you can write. After this, I mean, we can ruin the code in so many ways, but the SDK by itself is clean. Okay, now this is coming directly from the cloud, and you can add concurrency. So now this app, I can have 10,000 Android devices running this app at the same time. Obviously it's not designed for multi-user, but maybe I can add another key, which is the phone number of the device or the unique ID of the device. I can make it a part of my collection, and then when I run a query, I can query on that, right? So I can see all the nodes which come from this particular device. Another person can see the nodes coming from his device, and now there can be up to, I don't care, 1 million users. So what is my skill set? I am still a mobile developer, and because of this SDK, you see these are the types of platforms which can build this product now. We saw that a while ago, I suppose. So I can have iOS, I can have Android, Node.js, PhoneGap, Titanium, Backbone.js, and normal REST. So that's basically what it is. All the different providers give you different things. Okay, mostly it's a variation of something like this. They have a REST. They have the SDKs for push notification where you can register, and you can do all kinds of push you want in the backend. And on the backend, now that we have started using the APIs, you probably won't have too much of data, but you can in theory see how much of API calls were made and what API calls were made. Yeah, whatever. I don't know how that updates. Okay, maybe there's a setting to enable it. So this is what it is. Some of the providers, they give you things like a sync between devices. So there is only one guy who does that. There's a company, the Key, which I talked about. The only reason I like them is because they give you device sync. So anybody who has developed a project to sync data between devices should know how complicated it is. So the reason Key is giving that is because one of the founding companies was in that same domain. So when they started BAS, they decided to give that also. But you have to be careful when you use their service because you're tied into those guys. Okay. But then if you don't care, if you are making a game and it's going to be in the market for, I don't know, a year or two, or maybe a year, depending on what kind of business model you have, you can take the risk. Okay. So this is something which all the apps should be doing. We still have things like Temple Run which don't sync your progress properly. I had to, I don't know if it's there in the new version. The older version, the new one has it? They have started. Oh, good. Okay. So, you would have expected these things from day one, right? How hard is it to write data to the cloud? And it's not just a live API call. Things like caching on the client side, transmitting data to the server when you have established connection, all of these are part of the SDK. Okay, it may not be as straightforward, but you have to understand that all the SDKs are quite advanced in what they do. That's what it is. Let's take a little break. when we come back, do you want to quickly run through what Apacitive does with regard to the data? Sure. So let's have some coffee and some snacks. We'll take a 5 minutes break. Okay. We'll come back, look at Apacitive, and then we'll take questions. Yes.
Quite loud. So yeah, Mukund's given a pretty good intro to what BAS actually does. I want to actually, I'll start from what we do. So you guys saw that, how you can actually go about starting off with Kinvi. What we've done is for BAS, we thought that, generally what happens is that whenever you have an idea, or you want to build something, you go to a board and you start drawing out stuff, I'll take an example of a normal restaurant search app, right? So what does it have, right? You would basically, you'd say that, okay, fine, I'm actually going to have a location, restaurant, there'll be reviews, and then there'll be users. This is very simple. Something that, that might be the model for Zomato. That's an example that we have. So before you start implementing it, you'd go to the board and you'd start thinking, okay, fine, I'll have locations, reviews, users. And you'd be, then you draw out that how they interact with each other, where you'd say that, okay, fine, a user is basically the author of a review, right? And the review is for a location. That's pretty much it. So we thought that, why can't we just take this model, okay, and allow you to actually create your backend infrastructure just by doing that. So that's the way that we've actually tried to go about solving this problem. So say a Zomato. This is Zomato app. As again, can we ask you what platforms do you want to build the app on? This is generally they ask you this to try and figure out that. Like in certain cases, if you want push notifications, there is certain configuration which is specific to each platform. So that's the only reason why they ask you that. the UI is slightly better normally. We always have some issues with screen resolutions. Just out of the first demo, that the place that we launched in Bangalore is at Unplugged. That was the first demo that we ever had. Because of screen resolution, our UI wasn't visible at all. So it was slightly messed up, and we were the first people to actually present over there. Anyway, so I'll just go ahead. So, I was talking about the fact that, so in our system, it's basically about the fact that you have your entities and the relationship between them. Okay, so let's again try and model a simple restaurant search app. So user is already there. We do user management again out of the box. We'll have, say, a location, and we'll have a review. So these are the entities that you will have in your app, and then you can even say that, okay, fine, the user is basically the author of a review, and the review is basically for a location, right? So now you know that how these entities actually relate to each other, and you could even start giving structure to your data. So you'd say that, okay, fine, a location would basically have a name, which is a simple string, and since this is you want to try and search for a restaurant which is in a specific area, right? Because the apps are generally useful for that. So let's say give a location which is a geography property. So this tells us that later on you're actually going to do geo-based searches on top of it. So again, you do not have to do anything extra to enable those kind of searches. Just by the fact you've told us that this is a geography property, you can start doing it. Review, which is again simple text, just text. This we do user management out of the box, so this is already filled up, username, email address, etc. Now everything's ready. When you click update, so at this point of time, we actually generate the APIs right now. So your backend is pretty much ready to use right now. So to give you an example again, so as Mukund mentioned, most of these batch providers actually have a REST-based API. So that's again, you can use the net to make these calls. So even we are REST-based, and you can test out whatever APIs that are there over here. So let's just say we actually want to create a user and create user. So this is the place where developers would use it, right? It actually tells them, okay, fine, if I want to create a user in a Passitive, what am I supposed to do? So you're supposed to make a call to this URL, okay? This is the method that you're supposed to use. These are the headers that you need to send, okay? And this is the request that you're supposed to send in the body. So username, a birth date, all of that. And once you click execute, this basically generates the user in the system. So a user is actually already created. And you can see that over here. This was the user that we just created. And we'll create, say, a location. Say, Synerzip. And this is located in Kothur, Pune. And we'll also add, say, a review. So generally it's like this. At this point of time, username, name, and text. So at this point of time, you have three different entities which are already there. You have a user, you have a location, and then you have a review. And by itself, they do not make sense, right? So this is a point where I talk about that how these entities actually relate with each other. So you'd have the user is basically the author of a review. Okay. Again, screen resolution things are slightly messed up. And the review is basically for a location. So these, of course, you're not really, these are the calls that are going to be made by your actual phone. They're going to make the API calls and make this. So this is a place where you can actually visualize your data. Right? So with what we've basically done is we've taken a very different approach as to try and solve this problem where instead of thinking about your data in a very relational database format, right? We like, why don't you actually think about, again, entities and the relationship between them. Okay, it's a slightly different way of looking at things, and it's something that it's very natural in this case, right? You talk about a user, he's the author of a review and reviews for a particular restaurant. So that's what we generally do in this case. There are multiple things, user management, so you do not have to worry about password requests and all of that. That is again supported out of the box. Push notifications, you can send push again. Right now, iOS, Android, we have Windows, it's not there on the UI right now. So again, you do not have to integrate with all of the different servers, you can do it over here. Emails, Tesanis over here. Configuration, this is a place where, again, as Mukund mentioned, people generally want social integration, right? You want your users to be able to at least, log in with Facebook, Twitter, Gmail, Google account. So you can actually do that over here. You can specify that I want this authentication. So once this is enabled, you can have, you have those buttons in the app like log in with Facebook. You can have that implemented pretty much out of the blocks. Service hooks, this is something that, again, when you create, this is a, whenever, this basically allows you to do a good data storage and searching on top of it. But there are certain parts which are very specific to your app. Some code that you would want to run, which is very specific, your own logic. So we give you the ability where you can say that, okay, fine, whenever any of these events actually happen, okay, let me know about it, right? You can tell us, you can have your code posted somewhere, and we'll give you those events, and you can actually start creating your own logic. So this is the event-based infrastructure where you can do, we'll let you know that something has happened, and then you can do whatever you want with it. So again, the dashboard, you can check out how many API calls you've made, how many active users you have, how many push notifications, how many API calls that have been made, a lot of that. Then you have sandbox. This is not really view. So basically, two environments, a sandbox and a live environment. So you can do all your development and testing in the sandbox, and once you're sure that things are working, you can push it onto the live. That's, well, I'm not going to take more time. If there are any questions that you guys would want to ask. Yeah. Right.
It's not available in your application. How
Right.
will I do that?
So there are multiple ways. So like I mentioned over here that we provide service hooks. Okay. So say you want to do some piece of code whenever like a user writes a review.
I'll tell you the exact requirement.
Okay.
One application that I'm building right now, it requires SMS integration.
Okay.
So it should send SMS through, that bulk SMS service
Right.
providers. That is
Right.
the one. And second is payment gateway integration.
Okay.
So how can I go around?
So
these two
it generally depends. So there are two ways, like I said, with SMS, okay, depending on when you want to send an SMS. Like in this case, say user has written the review for Synergip, and you want to send Synergip that someone's actually written a review for you, right? So in this case, the thing that is available right now is whenever that connection is actually created, a review for Synergip, you can basically write your code, okay, and tell us that, okay, fine, whenever this connection is created, okay, run this piece of code. And in that piece of code, you can actually write the logic which actually sends the SMS. That's something there which is right now. What we are working on, which should be out there in the next couple of weeks, it's in the testing phase, is something known as cloud code, right? So we'll give you the ability to, again, put your piece of code, the JavaScript generally in this case, okay? And it's pretty much the same thing. It's your logic. We'll take care of the hosting. Like over here, in this case, what happens is that you still have to worry about the hosting part of it, where, you know, write your code, expose it as an API, put a machine up, post it, and tell us that, you know, make a call to that over there whenever that happens. But the cloud code is something that, write your piece of code, okay? We'll take care of the hosting, and you just tell us that when you want that piece of code to run. So you can actually do that.
I think that should be perfect. Yeah.
UI looks like that Node DB browser.
Right.
So do you use Node, I mean, just in the background or what?
So yeah, you talk about a node-based data store.
Yeah.
So like Neo4j or something like that.
Yeah, Neo4j. So it looks like that Neo4j browser.
So, you know, like I said, our whole logical storage is graph-based, right? Where it's about entities and the relationship between them. So whenever you interact with the system, okay, it's graph-based interaction, right? So now what that allows you to do is the fact that now you can actually start doing some interesting stuff. Like, to again give you an example, there's a Zomato's a restaurant search app, okay? And what they tell you is that they give you the ability to search for a restaurant depending on, you know, what you want to look for and if you want to go somewhere. So the general thing is that, okay, fine, you say, okay, fine, give me a good Chinese restaurant in Koregaon Park, right? So with locational based search, you would narrow down to a couple of them, and the user basically, okay, in the end, like, I see 2 of them. Now, how do I decide it and decide on where to go? And you generally show the user reviews, right? Now, these reviews are basically some random people who's written any reviews. So in this case, what you can actually do is that you can actually go down the route where give me the reviews, okay, written for these 2 particular restaurants by people who are in his network, right? So now your app can become slightly more intelligent in this particular way, and you can do that out of the box just because of the fact that you've joined those 2, where you'd say that, okay, fine, like in this case, you can actually do a self relation, and you could say that a user is basically a user's friend, right? So now you can actually start making these kind of smart, intelligent choices in your app, okay, because you have this ability to start going down this road. Anyone else?
Okay. So I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
The first question is, how do you query the relationship?
How do you query?
The relationship between entities.
Okay. So on the test harness again, sorry, my bad. There's something known as a graph API, right? And so this is the actual JSON object that you would send, where you'd say that, okay, fine. You would say that, okay, fine. This is the user that I want to start from, okay? For this particular user, give me all his friends, okay? And for all their friends, give me these posts. At each level, you can actually start giving filtering. So you'd say that, okay, fine. This user, give me all his friends who are basically, say, located in Bangalore, right? And for those people, okay, give me those posts which they've written about, say, Node, right? So these are the kind of graph queries that you generally write to give you a response. I mean, does that answer your question?
That does. That does.
Okay.
Okay. The other question I had was if I want to create an application,
right,
not from UI, but through some APIs.
Hmm.
So do you also expose APIs wherein I can create an application, define entity relationship, and all kind of stuff?
So that's something that we're not necessarily exposing right now. As in, you're saying that being able to make those entities and relationship, the graph design that I saw.
Basically, I want to create an application through an API, not
Okay.
through a UI.
Um,
So where I'm coming from is, in the normally in the IaaS space, you have something like cloud provider managers. Wherein so let's suppose if I don't want to get stuck up with a particular provider, I can go to a cloud provider manager.
Right.
And I give him a requirement, and then he kind of takes care of providing that implementation. Like RightScale. RightScale is the company which does that.
Okay.
So, I mean, in case you have an API, so anyone can plug in to your application.
Right.
Given some requirements, and create an application, create an application.
So, so the APIs, these are APIs that are exposed, right? So are you talking about the design part of things?
Design part of things, correct.
That's something that we won't necessarily, right now we don't, okay? We are not necessarily looking at exposing that, at least for some point of time. Because our whole idea is the fact that, at least the approach that we've taken, okay, is the fact that that part of the UI is something that you can actually design. It's a more visual experience that we want to get. So right now, not necessarily.
So I mean, do you know other other competitors who do that? Because if I'm creating a manager,
right,
class, I'll go to vendors or provide, to my clients, I can provide a facility for them to create a bar services to vendors who are exposing an API for designing it.
Right.
So that's where I'm coming from.
It actually depends, as in so I'm not so sure about the other BaaS providers, how many of them actually allow you to give a very structure to the data that you, like Kinvi in this case, you can give a certain structure to it. I don't know if they do they expose their...
Nobody exposes any API to launch an application. What they do give you is the ability to, because it is basically JSON data, you can modify that schema on the run. Your application creates a new entity. Above that, if you're talking about, as long as you create a collection, you can create any type of entity you want in the collection. But the collection itself needs to be created in the backend. Nobody is exposing a API where they allow you to create the collection directly from the application, because they need to generate the app secret and the app keys and all that. And those are generally, I have not seen any BaaS provider do that. But once there is an application, you can create your own collections and put entities in there any way you want. That is pretty flexible. With Apacitive, it's very structured because they allow you to think of visualized data. Others don't care. So there it's free form is pretty much there. You would still need to use the console. You can't really automate it. As far as I know, I played with a bunch. I haven't seen that. If you look between StackMob and Parse, I think one of them gives you a wizard for migration from the other. So have a look
from Parse to StackMob.
Yeah, so have a look at what they do. That should give you some insight into it. Any more questions?
Yeah, so is there any BaaS service provider which allow you to send push notification via RSS feed?
Via RSS feed?
Yeah.
I don't think any of them allow you to do it out of the box, right? With some amount of hack, you can pretty much do that. but I don't think any of them, at least as far as I know.
So is there any solution for that?
You can write your own. So what exactly are you looking at?
Suppose I have some website, right?
Hmm.
It publishes RSS feed.
Okay.
So I've created some Android application.
Okay.
And I want to populate RSS feed through push notification.
Okay.
So
it's a simple thing, right? You can actually, if you're using any one of these providers,
okay,
right? You can have a small piece of code which basically listens to the RSS, right? And whenever it gets anything, it basically uses one of these to send your notification.
Yeah.
Basically, you would create your own REST API and then put some feed in there which you can push down. That's pretty much what you do. You don't have to conform to the RSS standard or anything. For mobile apps, generally people don't do that.
How do we take backups in this case?
So backups, as in I talk about exporting your data, or
yeah.
So it's not there on the UI, but it's something that. So we are not
I pointed to that risk.
Yeah. No. So it's not like we there's a lock-in. So it's not like you're tied with us and like.
I just
you're
want to know
married.
if it is easy.
No, definitely. I mean, whenever you want any kind of backup, we'd give it to you in a proper whatever general database format that you have, CSVs or whatever. Because so the thing is that we recently just launched in January, late December. So a few of these things, a lot of these features are there. So it's there in the API, but we haven't necessarily put it on the UI again. So when people want it, we give it to them. So that's, again, there's no lock-in period to that.
Any more questions?
Right. No. So that's the thing. I mean, if we were to charge, they would be putting some sort of lock-in on that. So again, if you want to leave, right, you we're not happy or whatever, we would give you your data back. I mean, it's not like you're holding it.
Yeah, nobody does that. But I guess the only point which they try to do is they want to understand why they are losing business. So they would like you to talk to them before you go. So this is an interesting example not related to BAS with regard to this lock-in. I recently, has anyone ever registered with Adobe? They should be getting spam email for Creative Cloud. Marketing email. So I went and registered for it. It was very attractive, just as an anecdote, right? And for $1,600 a month, I could have, on a monthly basis, I could have Dreamweaver, the latest. I did that, and then my requirement came to an end, and I wanted to unsubscribe. Okay, so unsubscribe, if you look at their help pages, it says it's there in your management console, but in Adobe India's website, it's not there.
Okay.
And then I had to get into a chat with a guy who wasted 25 minutes of my life, opened a ticket, said he would get back to me in a couple of days. 1 week later, I went back, asked what's happening in the ticket. 2 weeks later, I again got into a live chat, and at that point of time, somebody decided to have, somebody felt bad for me, and then they actually did cancel my account. So when you talk about lock-in, I guess Adobe India wanted to retain their customers and figure out why they are cancelling their subscription, but it ended up being the other way. I am never ever going back to Adobe ever again. So, yeah.
No, as in, so I guess any one of them have no issues. They won't really come and tell you that you're locked with us. They're just trying to figure out why you're going there, and it might be something that will help them improve on stuff ahead.
Okay. So, if you guys are interested at some point, so yeah, Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I've interacted with him in the past, so I know he's geeky enough. That being said, very nice of him to do that. Thank you. How do I sign out of this? Okay, so that's fine. Now that a lot of people are here, I would like to ask people to come up and give talks. Okay, this happens always on a Saturday from 4 to 6. So if you have any topics you would like to present, talk to other people so that you can share ideas. Feel free. Go to meetup.com and write to me from there. Okay. Last time we had a call on next generation quality testing and all that, and somebody volunteered to do a talk on single page app testing, so I'm scheduling that for July. There is also somebody who's likely to come visit India in August who would be talking about mobile app development in some area. So we are trying to do more talks on single page applications, the JavaScript ecosystem, some more mobile topics and all that. So if you have any topic you want people to talk on and things like that, do use the community. It cannot be a monologue. Okay, so that's pretty much about it, and thank you.
As a gesture of thanks to Mukund, of course, for sparing his time and sharing some valuable insights about the topic, I request Prashant. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mukund.